Gerald Celente, founder of the Trends Research Institute in 1980, we're excited to hear that Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, former head of policy for the Treasury, Wall Street Journal editor, has joined the team. He announced that last week with us. TrendsResearch.com is the website. It's invaluable report that everybody's got to get each month. And, of course, the intel reports that are on the site on a daily basis. Gerald Celente is a pioneer trend strategist. He's the author of the national bestseller Trends 2000 and Trends Tracking. Far better than Megatrends, and publisher of the International Circulated Trends Journal newsletter. He's a political atheist. Gerald Celente is a political atheist, unencumbered by political dogma. And you can learn more, of course, at TrendsResearch.com. The proof is the past. Gerald Celente has earned his reputation as the most trusted name in trends by accurately forecasting hundreds of social, business, consumer, environmental, economic, political, entertainment, and technological trends among them. Gerald, great to have you joining us, sir.
Oh, it's always great being on with you, Alex.
Well, it's awesome having you, Gerald, with us here today. Going over all of this information, there's obviously a lot that I want to ask you. CNBC saying it's a depression, not a recession. The Federal Reserve coming out today and saying we are in deep trouble. We've got more of the same poison as the solution. But with everything happening, just break down the current trends and what you think is most important before I start asking questions.
Well, they're admitting what we've been saying all along, that there would be no recovery. This isn't a double-dip recession. We never got out of the first dip. And we kept saying over and over and over that you cannot keep printing this phantom money out of thin air, backed by nothing and producing practically nothing. It was just a cover-up. Now, unfortunately, as we've also been saying all along, when all else fails, they take you to war. It's as almost though Orwell wrote the script. Last week, our esteemed Secretary of State Hillary Clinton was in, of all places, Vietnam. Can you imagine? In Vietnam, now the United States is making a military alliance with those Vietnamese. Remember how the U.S. government sent over some 60,000 of our soldiers to get slaughtered. That's how many were killed in the Vietnam War. Several 100,000 ruined. Millions of Vietnamese killed. And now they're, according to Ms. Clinton, our strategic ally. And the dispute going on between Vietnam and China over islands in the South China Sea, she said, quote, are of national U.S. interest. No, they're not. They are, I am a national, and they're not of my interest, and I don't need her or any other flunky out there telling me what my interest is, being that I pay for this stuff. So what they're doing is they're bringing us closer into wars all over the globe. And as we heard Fidel Castro say this past weekend, the Iranians are not going to tolerate the United States or Great Britain or any other flunky ally boarding their ships to see what's on board come September. They're setting us up for war. And I want to make this really clear, Alex. Anybody that's voting for war against Iran, let them pack up themselves, their wives, and their kids and go fight the war and empty out your bank accounts and go support it. And all these people that call themselves leaders, let them lead us into war. Let Hillary and Bill and little baby Chelsea and her husband, let them go to war. Let Pelosi, let Frank, let Bonner, let Bond, let McConnell, let them go to war. If they don't go to war, if these wankers on the Council on Foreign Affairs don't go to war, as these swivel chair generals yak it up on the media, don't go to war, then there's no war. Until they go, until they put their lives on the line, end the war. The wars are bankrupting this country. I heard that other guy, that Krugman today, writing from the toilet paper of record, the New York Times, saying what's wrong with this country and what needs to be done to correct it. Not 1 inch, not 1 line of the wars that are draining the Treasury. And then you pick up today's newspaper, hey, the United States just did a $30 billion deal with Saudi Arabia. You know, that wonderful democracy over there? $30 billion worth of planes being sold. It's all a racket.
F-16s.
Period, paragraph.
Well, Gerald, you're absolutely right. And it's in the news, but it's in the back of the paper that Israel is planning to strike Iran in the next 3 months. And you would think this would be a bigger issue because every analyst out there agrees it runs from bad to worse, at least doubling oil prices. They'll use the war as a police state crackdown. Obama will use it as a way to rally people around him going into the election. It could easily trigger terror attacks in the United States and could trigger World War III with China and Russia, with Pakistan and India. They could go to war. Most analysts agree there's a good chance World War III could start. And they're about to launch this, and it's not even a major news item. Instead, we're hearing about Lindsay Lohan.
Well, again, this country's turned snooky stupid. I heard Obama on The View. I had to watch this stuff to see what he says. And that's exactly what they're talking about. The President of the United States has nothing else to do with his time than to sit down with 5 gaggling women talking about Lindsay Lohan, Mel Gibson, and Snooki. The New York Times, again, the toilet paper of record, a whole big feature on Snooki. Why do we even know this stuff? It's perfect. Bread and circuses as the empire is declining. So when we go back to Iran, and we just put out a trend alert, you got it, about why Obama won't debate with Ahmadinejad over these issues. Well, I have to tell you, subscribers to the Trends Journal criticizing us for saying that, listen, why don't they debate? And people are going to once again be led into a fake war just as they did with Bush. And they're going to do it again with Obama in Iran, and you hit it perfectly. It will be another excuse to tighten up on the police state antics that are already in place, because after all, Alex, they're just doing it to protect us.
Well, I mean, look at the nation. It's disintegrating from Ohio to California. Many cities are laying off, and counties, more than half their deputies are police. LA's announcing they're not going to fix many roads and sidewalks. They're announcing massive layoffs at the state and local level. Corporations are shutting down. They admit we're going into a depression, a double-dip recession. And then meanwhile, the federal government's hiring. They're increasing wages. The defense budget's going up. They're talking about $2 trillion in additional lending by banks that'll go on the taxpayer rolls. I mean, you can see this global elite using up the treasure of the empire. We're bankrupt, and they are showing that instead of slowing down, they're accelerating us towards financial and economic and military ruin.
Again, you're right, and this isn't rhetoric.
We just lost Gerald's audio. Joining us via New York. We'll get that hooked back up with him right now. Was that on our end or on his end, guys? That happens occasionally. You know, it's the wonders of video. While we're at it, let's get him to tip the camera down. Gerald Celente, again, breaking all of this down with us. And next hour, we're going to have the phones open. They're open now. 1-800-259-9231 is the toll-free number to join us. I mean, look at this economic news. Economic slowdown catches up with NASCAR. They're no longer jam-packed. They're seeing the tickets go way down in price and a lot smaller crowds. I mean, it's even affecting NASCAR, and the government's saying, let them eat cake. Everything's wonderful. We told you last week this was coming with Bob Chapman. Now, here it is in the Financial Times of London. Fed set to downgrade U.S. outlook for U.S. I mean, they knew full well that the stimulus was just going to line their pockets and that there need to be another one and another one. But all of this gets put back on the backs of the American people. But I wanted to read this headline to Gerald Celente. and get his comment on it. Here's a CNBC headline from today. We are an equivalent of Great Depression. And they go on to list that the graphs for the stock market and the economy and for equities is identical from 29 to 33. And it took 3 years for them to admit we were in a depression. And now I'm seeing mainstream articles every day saying we're in a depression. But their answer is give the bankers more power, let the Securities and Exchange Commission have total secrecy on who it prosecutes for derivatives corruption and who it doesn't. And we see the Federal Reserve setting up a new private board with even more power over the economy when they're the same group that did it. And we have Chelsea marrying this Goldman Sachs exec whose congressman father's in prison for stealing $11 million from taxpayers. And it's let them eat cake. And you've got Marie Antoinette, Michelle Obama, Michelle Sotaro running around on taxpayer money, and Obama's having all these parties with rock stars and on The View, and even mainstream media, Gerald, is saying what you were saying 6 months ago. It's let them eat cake. The New York Daily News had that headline that they just don't care. They're rubbing it in our faces. They're laughing at us. They're arrogant.
Again, you know, before we got cut off, 90% of the wealth, 93% of the wealth is controlled by 10% of the nation. I mean, you know, I'm not making these numbers up. That means the rest of us are there to cut up that other 7%. We have 10 banks controlling 80% of the assets. It's a takeover. And I get a kick out of this, Alex. As you well know, we've been talking about the greatest depression since the crash happened in 2008. And everyone out there in the mainstream media, either the New York Times called what I'm doing, quote, pessimism porn, until their own flunkies start seeing it, and then it's genius analysis. When Krugman comes up with it, 2 years too late, and about $11 trillion spent.
And he had a full solution. Give the Federal Reserve more money. Give the Federal Reserve, the very crooks that orchestrated this, more power.
Yeah, exactly. That's like you having a second mortgage and you're really in trouble. Hey, Alex, how about a third mortgage? This thing is going under. Here's our message for everyone. Only the strong are going to survive this. You better be in shape physically, spiritually, and emotionally. There's no salvation for these rest of the people that are waiting for their leaders to lead them. The game is over. They're going to keep conning the people every time there's a bit of rosy economic news to make it appear that things are okay. You better start planning now for the winter. There could not be a better grasshopper and ant scenario in place.
And they're not lying about the economy and telling you things are getting better so that we have better confidence. They're doing it so we politically don't get angry and take control of our government. It's our country. It's our republic, and put in policies that would have averted and fixed this. But I know you and many other experts say that it's now too far gone. We're going into the ground.
We're going into the ground. There's only, to me, there are a couple of things that could be done. And one of them, again, I've said this about a new alternative energy, something bigger than wind, solar, geothermal, or biofuel, just like we had the internet revolution that got us out of the 1990s mess.